other side of the world, another war and another revolution were waiting. Since 1914, war had ravaged Europe. No country had suffered more than Russia.
It's estimated that between as low as 8 and sometimes as high as 20% of Russian troops going into battle did not have rifles at all. They were simply issued with ammunition and told to pick up a rifle if the first guy near them, that caught a bullet.
The standard firearm of the Russian infantryman was the Model 1891 Mosin-Nagant rifle. It was a 5-shot repeater. The rifle itself was a well-designed, strong, accurate weapon. Part of the problem was that unfortunately the Russians just didn't have enough of them. They had this huge juggernaut army, but the men were not properly equipped.
The Russian government contracted with American gun manufacturers like Winchester, Remington, Westinghouse, and Colt, but they could never get enough weapons. By February of 1917, the Russian army was deserting in mass numbers. Troops no longer had the strength to fight, no longer cared what happened on the Eastern Front with Germany. It was a situation tailor-made for the revolutionary Bolsheviks.
The conditions were miserable. They weren't being fed, they weren't being paid, they weren't being taken care of. They were used as human cannon fodder. So the Bolsheviks had no real problem pulling lots and lots of the soldiers over.
If it hadn't been for the First World War, there probably would not have been a revolution in Russia. Lenin so despaired of the chances of revolution in Russia that he not only left, but he thought the revolution would probably occur in a country like Ireland long before it happened in Russia.
The Russian Revolution could have been avoided or forestalled or certainly softened if the Tsar hadn't been so stubborn and taken the Russians out of the war.
In October 1917, militant crowds, led by Vladimir Lenin, gathered outside the Tsar's Winter Palace in Petrograd. The mood was tense as the mob faced off with a battalion of female troops. The stalemate was broken by the blast of a cannon.
2 blank rounds from the cruiser Aurora, anchored a mile or so away, are fired. This so frightens everybody in the Winter Palace that Lenin's forces rush in, waving their weapons, shouting and screaming, chase everybody out, including the women's battalion. The revolution is a done deal. Lenin is in charge in Petrograd.
But the real fighting was just beginning. For the next 3 years, revolutionary forces battled with troops loyal to the Tsar. It was chaotic, it was bloody, and it shredded what was left of the Russian economy. Amidst the madness, troops scrambled for whatever weapons they could find, mostly the Russian-made Mosin-Nagants.
When the Bolsheviks broke into arsenals, combined with the weapons that had been brought back by various disenchanted soldiers who had come back from the front, then the makeup of the weapons that the Bolsheviks used were predominantly Mosin-Nagants.
The Bolsheviks liked to use the famed 30 caliber broom handle Mauser. Matter of fact, they even had their own version of it with a shorter squared off grip and shorter barrel, and they ended up calling this the Bolo Mauser, which was short for Bolshevik, because they used it so much.
As World War I ended, the Russians were still mired in their horrendous civil war. The Allies, fearing the spread of communism, quietly sent troops to help defeat the Red Army.
Allied troops from the United States, from France, from Great Britain, from Canada, Australia, and Japan took part in an expeditionary force into Russia and actually fought the Red Army. The intervention began in 1918 and continued into 1920. So we had troops that fought in Siberia and northern Russia for 2 years, following what we consider the end of World War I.
Ultimately, of course, the Bolsheviks triumphed, and revolution became a leading communist export.